today's topic is going to be about looking at yourself deeply, honestly, and rawly. So I'd like to spin this on its head a little bit with my first question. Just when did you realize that you weren't doing that?
I think I realized that I was pretty good at reading people and that I was pretty focused on triangulating what I thought others wanted from me, particularly my parents, but also just other people in my life and trying to be that. And that I didn't really feel like I knew who I was or what I wanted. Um, and I found the easiest way to get people to like you is just to minimize yourself and to just sort of mirror them, figure out what they want and be that and say that. And so you sort of stuff yourself down and stuff yourself down. And it was through, having depression and working with therapists and so on that I realized like just how subjugated I had become. A therapist I had said that he related it to sugar in hot tea, that it has a cellular structure. It is something undeniably sugar, right? And then you put it in hot tea and you stir and it's still there. It's sweet. You can taste it in the tea, but it's gone. You can't see anything. And when you try to be something for other people, you sort of lose your cellular structure.
Was there any kind of like breaking point that you were like, I just need to look at myself in an honest way and not do this anymore?
I don't know if that's what started the process, but yeah, just being really depressed, I think, just really feeling low and things weren't all that bad. I had like a great girlfriend. I liked my startup. I was living in this really cool spot in Sausalito, California. There was this little bungalow right near nature. On paper, I had a very, very good life, but I was really, really, really not happy. And so I think that was sort of the wake up call to like, okay, I decided pretty impulsively just to move back east from California, just closer to my family, closer to a therapist that I had, the one I mentioned when I lived in New York, and really focus on like figuring this out. And I think through starting that process, I realized, oh my gosh, a lot of what's causing this is that I just stuff down who I am and I'm not honoring who I am.
And then how did you go about just, looking at yourself and unpacking all of that in an honest way?
I don't think I ever didn't want to, or when given the opportunity to, wouldn't be brutally honest with myself. I think it was probably just doing therapy quite consistently, um, and having a setting, having a forum to be introspective and to really ask the hard questions or be asked the hard questions and to answer them and to work through it and work through it and work through it and peel it back and understand understand who I am, understand that that's okay, understand what's been getting in the way of that. Like, oh, wow, well, my parents think, matters probably too much to me. And I have been trying to be something for them and not for myself. And who am I? You know, um, a lot of people get caught up in what I call the drumbeat of obligation. Like we all have things we have to do. We have to pay our bills and we have to do things for other people in our lives to whom we've made commitments, whether it's a partner or a child or a parent. Um, and that keeps us, you have something right in front of you. You want a certain promotion or you want to get a certain gig if you're a freelancer, or you want to, um, you know, you just have things to sort of pull you through life. But I think stopping and actually being like, what really makes me happy is actually a much harder question to answer than like, what are the 2 or 3 things I need to do this month to like fulfill my obligations as a father or as a son or as a sister or as a wife or whatever it may be.
What are those things to you and how do they manifest in your own life right now?
What are the things that make me happy? Um, Community is a big one. Feeling part of one. Like I just went to a little coffee shop. I'm here in North Carolina and I've only been here a week, but I've gone to the same coffee shop every morning and I've already gotten to know the people there and I sort of feel a part of it, even though I'm new. I just feel like I kind of know a few of their names and I just feel like part of the fabric and they all are very close. You can tell everyone comes in as a regular. The guy knows all their orders. So on the micro scale and then on the macro scale, trying to facilitate community. We spoke last time about the hourglass of life, how you could be anything. And then you have to go through a bottleneck of focus to then give back and be everything, and help as many people as possible. And my goal in life, I think I've mentioned before on this little series, is to touch 1 million people, is to try to help 1 million people before I die.
I'm just curious, that's a very big number. And I know that you don't do things by halves. How you do anything is how you do everything, is what you mentioned last session. Why 1 million people? Like, why are you aiming for that?
I mean, for now, it's as you said, it's just a big number, right? Like it may well end up being 2.6 million, or it may end up being 800,000. So I think so long as I have a very large outside, but I really do think this hourglass concept is the key, right? Audit yourself, understand yourself, love yourself for who you are, quadruple down on your strengths and interests, choose your sacrifice. So as you're getting pulled into that bottleneck, don't get sucked in as if it's a drain. In other words, a lot of people are like, well, I've been doing this job since I left college, or my dad always wanted me to do this job, or I have to do this job to pay the bill. Try not to get sucked in to your sacrifice, but instead have some governance, some excitement, some enthusiasm about the sacrifice. We all have to sacrifice. Life is filled with malevolence. So wouldn't it be nice if you could choose the way in which you're sacrificing? So I've done that. And then to really, while you're in that narrow gap, that narrowness, really give all of yourself to strengthening yourself, hardening yourself, and getting better at that sacrifice, and then fanning out. And if you and I were having this conversation 30 years ago, first of all, we wouldn't, because this didn't exist, Zoom or some video, way to talk like this. But let's say we were. Me scaling myself would be maybe writing a book or something, but likely just sort of being a pillar in my community or in my family, helping 5 family members, 10 friends, 10 community members, and a life well lived would have been touching 25 people. That would be a pretty outsized. It's the plot of the movie A Beautiful Life, or what is the term? A Wonderful Life, sorry. He dies and gets to see what the world would have been like had he never lived. But now, because of technology, I can take my skill set and who I am and what I'm good at and multiply it very, very significantly. I think the hub, by the time it's done, by the time I sell it or put someone else in charge of it, it will have touched tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. So I'll be well on my way.
I want to circle back to something you said at the beginning of your answer to this. You said audit yourself, which is a synonym essentially to look at yourself deeply, but it's far more technical. I'm curious, do you think you have a preference in terms of just looking at like the technicality term of what you're doing here, or just the more layman's terms?
I'll answer the question. I have a plan for how I'm going to touch 1 million people too, by the way, which I'm happy to reveal to you. I haven't really talked about it very much, but I know exactly how I want to do it. But to answer your question, look at yourself, audit yourself. One is technical and one is layman's. I think if you can, I don't really have a process for this yet, because I've done it in therapy, which is great, if you're willing to put in the time and you have the money, frankly, because it's expensive. But a clinical way to do it would be to just get out a journal page and write down a lot of things that a lot of markings of rooms that you like to be in, and I use rooms colloquially. It could literally be a room, or it could be a relationship, or any sort of arena. What are the hallmarks of the places that you like to be and that give you energy and make you happy? And then on the next page, what are the hallmarks of rooms or relationships or experiences that take energy from you? And then you'll have a big list or sort of word cloud. And then I would take out like a highlighter or a Sharpie. And the highlighter, I would highlight the non-negotiables. So like, what are the things that, like, if all else fails, you need those things to be happy, or those things for sure make you unhappy. And then take out a Sharpie and eliminate some of the, and just try to sort of cull it down to like, what are the 3, 5, 8 things that bring you joy consistently? And what are the 3, 5, 8 things that don't? And you'll start to see as you do that, like, wow, that makes a lot of sense as to why X made me unhappy or Y made me happy. I was talking to a friend about this yesterday, and we were talking about how sensitive he is and in touch with himself and introspective, and but sensitive. He gets hurt, he feels things, and he's been made to feel by friends and by his last job like that was other or defective. An analogy I like a lot is, are you familiar with the film series X-Men? I really like it because it's a superhero comic and movie. Um, but as they're called mutants, not superheroes, and they're cast out of their homes and communities for being defective. Like Cyclops, the guy that can shoot lasers from his eyes, takes down a whole train station in his hometown, and he's cast out. And then they all end up at this school for sort of wayward mutants. And they learn at that school, A, to love themselves, and B, to hone their thing, which is ugly, defective, and learn to view it as a superpower by honing it. And that's the process I'm describing. Is like my friend's sensitivity. He worked at a finance job with lots of broy dudes that don't outwardly show their feelings, and he had a lot of feelings, and he felt it was very toxic, and felt other, and felt wrong and not good enough, and he got laid off during COVID, actually. And I'm like, it's okay, man. I'm like, that's a beautiful, beautiful thing about you. And all we've learned is that wasn't the right room for you to be in. And that going forward, rooms where sensitivity and caring and empathy are at a premium are the rooms that you should be in, whether it's a relationship or a profession or a hobby. And that's just information. It's not good or bad. It's just something that you have to accept about yourself and seek out those places where that is accepted, right? And so if we can be honest with ourselves about our hallmark attributes and not feel defective, but find those rooms where those things are superpowers, not defects, that's a good way to move along your path.
On that point, statistically, men are less likely to go to therapy or seek help or, really get in touch with their emotions than women are. I'm curious, what, if anything, do you think was the kind of the tripping point that set you apart to actually seek this help? And also, I'm curious, do you see in your community of friends or acquaintances that this statistic or paradigm shift that is shifting?
I'm very, very public, obviously, given that you and I are talking about this and I'm going to publish it, about my insecurities and the fact I've done hundreds and hundreds of hours of therapy. Um, and I have friends that will talk to me and say, you inspired me to go to therapy and so on. And then I have friends that talk to me and say, I would never do it. Many friends have said that to me. Like, I just would, mostly men, to your point. I just would never go. And women too. One of my closest friends is a woman, and she said she did started going to therapy. I don't know how big a role I played in that, but during our friendship, she started, and she's like, I got to be honest with you, James. I go in the middle of the workday and it just dredges up all kinds of pain and feelings. And then I have to kind of sit in that all day. It's very distracting and I'm not sure I can keep doing it. Um, I think it's always best to look, you need to audit. It needs to be a real audit. You can't just look at the pieces of yourself that you want to see. You have to see all of it. And you have to go through that pain to get out the other side, I believe. Yeah, so I would prescribe it to everyone.
How has it made your life better in terms of, running your business or in any other capacities? Just if you could give me some tangible examples.
It's hard, Ella. You can call me on this. It sounds entitled, maybe, and I guess it is. But I just don't put myself in rooms or relationships where the highlighted things in my non-negotiable page aren't present. So if I enter a room, once, twice, anyone, I can deal with that. But if I'm consistently made to feel defective, I just excuse myself. And that goes for work, that goes for hobbies, that goes for relationships. Like I'm committed to a life where there are enough rooms out there and enough different kinds of rooms, professionally, interpersonally, hobbies, where who I am is at a premium and is appreciated, and who I am not isn't a problem. And so I'm just sort of committed to a life where I just actively excuse myself from situations where I feel unwelcome.
I'm curious, when you began auditing yourself, because that's the word you just keep going back to, so I'm gonna use it myself. But when you started auditing yourself, was there anything that just really surprised you or that you first thought was incorrect, but assumed had to be correct since it bubbled up for you?
I mean, it all comes down to like a big thing. I got in a big fight with my dad over this actually. And it sort of caused a rift between myself and my family, which is something I'm dealing with. Um, it's a bit meta, but my defective superpower, if I was an X-Men, my thing would be um, deeply empathizing with, and my dad calls it shining a light in the cracks of others. That's his line that he likes to use. Just trying to, the people that I'm close with and even people I'm not, frankly, I very quickly size them up and sort of shine a light in interesting areas of their soul. And so it forges very intimate relationships very quickly, professionally, personally, etc. And some people are like, whoa, what you just like pointed out some shit I do not want to talk about or look at. And so in my life, that again and again and again has gotten me into massive trouble. And again and again and again has forged really powerful friendships and romantic relationships and professional relationships. And I believe it's how intimacy is formed, is seeing someone's darkness and loving them anyway, or seeing their brightness and celebrating it and meaning it. Wow, congratulations. That's so awesome. I'm really happy for you. And so learning to just realize that that's actually a superpower, and the people that don't like it, the rooms that don't like it, that's okay. No judgment on them, but I'm just not going to go into those rooms. I'm not going to go into those relationships. And the people that like it, I'm going to give as much as I can to those people. That's sort of the seminal thing I've learned about myself and that I've had to navigate in the world, is going towards relationships and situations where people are ready to do the audit, are ready to engage with me on a level of depth that I crave.
This is going a bit hypothetical, almost to the point of galaxy brain, but what benefits do you see if more people were to start on this like first step of, as you called it, the key to life?
I mean, if you subscribe to my Key to Life framework, which sounds very guru-ish and gag worthy, I think it's massive. It just means that everyone makes it to the second step, and then some won't make it through the second step. But like, the more people that can make it through each step, if it's truly the path to enlightenment, then more people in theory will make it to the end, right? Like, more people will love themselves and have a outsized impact on the world. If everyone had the goal of touching exponentially more people, even if it's everyone went to 10, everyone went to 10, or everyone went to 50 or 100, imagine that. Imagine if 1,000,000 people touched 100 people. Now 100 million people have been touched. Is that right? Maybe more, maybe exponentially more than that. It's too early. I can't do the math. But the point is, if everyone subscribed to this, then we'd all be helping other people. And I think the world would be a much better place.
This helping framework is almost kind of the inverse of what a lot of people think entrepreneurship does, in that it's kind of attaining, let's say, 1,000,000 customers as opposed to helping 1,000,000 people. Was there ever any moment in which you realized there was kind of like this shift towards something that is more altruistic?
I mean, I really like it's Matthew McConaughey's phrase, who's brilliant and like a poet, philosopher. Um, I think I mentioned it last time, the egotistical utilitarian. I just really like that, because my whole life, there are 5 seminal personality traits. So I'm trait extroverted, I'm trait open, and I'm trait neurotic. Those are 3 of them. And because of those 3 traits, I'm often viewed by people as egotistical, or outwardly confident to the point of maybe being cocky. But for me, it's really just my energy force. It's beaming out, and I really seek for that to help others ultimately. Like, I'm not in it for myself. I'm really not. So I think it's just been the past year of cognitive behavioral therapy, certain Navy SEALs that I've read the memoirs of and listened to a lot of their videos and podcasts. Jordan Peterson, Matthew McConaughey recently. Like, I'm sort of putting all of these thoughts together. And just like a Navy SEAL, trains and gives all of himself to his training and becoming the best warrior he can so that he can save lives. That's what I hope to do. I hope to become the best warrior I can, the best entrepreneur I can, to go out there and help as many people as I can. I'm really not in it for the money. I haven't been shy about saying that I put money from a trust fund into my business to start the business. If I were in it for the money, I would have just kept the money.
And then my last question for you is, you touched on this a little bit, that a lot of people shy away from doing this work because it is uncomfortable. How do you either sit in that uncomfortability? Do you seek it out? Like, walk me through. Just, it's not necessarily about making the uncomfortable feel easier, I'm understanding. It's just you have started to feel comfortable there.
Yeah, I mean, I think like, for example, I don't know if you go to the gym, Ella, but like, I started going to the gym when I was in college a lot. I still exercise every day, and whether it's running or lifting weights, you know that you're going to be like winded when you first start running. It's painful, and that's getting you into shape. Or that when you're lifting weights, if you really lift heavy, you feel kind of wobbly. You feel like your arms or legs are made of jello. Sometimes you feel lightheaded. It's quite uncomfortable when you max out a set in the gym, or you run a little too fast. But we know somehow that, like, that's good. And what's happening is you have micro tears on your muscles that repair, and the muscles get stronger, which means they can handle a bigger load next time. or that by being winded this time, you can run a little bit faster next time, and a little bit faster, a little bit farther. And so in exercise, we've accepted that like being uncomfortable is the pathway to being more comfortable later. Like that's something that everyone who has ever exercised just understands. Otherwise, they wouldn't be going through the pain. It's the same thing psychologically. It's like you have to go through some uncomfortability to strengthen your mind to be less uncomfortable later. So if you're not willing to get winded on a run or be a little wobbly in the gym, then you're never going to get stronger or faster. If you're not willing to be a little uncomfortable mentally, you're never going to master your mind.
That takes us to time. Is there anything else about looking at yourself that we didn't touch that you would want people to know?
Yeah, I mean, just quickly, like my plan right now to just to get it on tape because it would be interesting to see how it changes. It's November 11th, 2000. So 5 years from today, within that time frame, I'd like to sell my company for $100 million, and I'd like to own 20% of it or more. So I'll make 20, which will be taxed down to 12. And then I want to take 10 of that and put it back on the table to fund a 501c3, which is a nonprofit. And there's something else called the Happiness Project, but that's sort of the working title in my head. I basically want to have, there's a survey that I take at the start of every CBT therapy session I do that asks you questions about anger, depression, fulfillment, relationship satisfaction, and anxiety. And you rank them on a scale, and it keeps track of that over time. So I want to have something like that, and then I want to have it tethered to everything: your geolocation, your cell phone usage, the weather, and then yeah, and your sleep and your exercise, and all of that can be pulled in. And then things that you report, how many alcoholic beverages you had, who you're going on dates with, any number of other things. And then I want to be able to report to people correlations like, hey, Susie, when you exercise more than 5 hours a week, you're 18% happier that week. Hey, Susie, when you drink more than 10 units of alcohol in a week, you're 12% less happy. And I'm going to pay people $1,000 to complete 100 days of this app. If they miss a day, they don't get the money. And that will train an algorithm. I have a data science friend who's going to start this with me when I'm 35, so that we have 10,000 pieces of data to start to understand what makes people a little bit happier, a little bit sadder, a little bit more anxious, a little bit less, and so on, fulfilled, not fulfilled. And then we'll take that work in progress algorithm and go and raise a ton of money from philanthropic branches of institutions, so that a university can understand how the Latino community within their organization are feeling, or the professors versus the students, or students on financial aid versus not. Companies can do it. And so it can help inform institutions as to how they look after certain groups on their campus or within their building. And then it can help individuals make better decisions about their life. Hey, you're happier when you're in Brooklyn than Manhattan. Maybe you should move to Brooklyn. Hey, you're happier when you're dating Emily instead of Jessica. Maybe you should talk to Emily more, things like that. You're happier when you drink less, than as opposed to drinking more. So cut out alcohol. And my goal is, if I can raise $100 million off the back of that prototype, to really scale up a team and scale up user acquisition. And it's like Headspace, but instead of charging $80 a year, I'm going to have it be free. It's a 501c3, it's a charity, and we're just here to help people make smarter decisions to help them be happier, help them do that audit, by surfacing useful data. And so the hub will touch 100,000 people, but I will use the money from selling that to start a nonprofit to help millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions if I do it right. So that's how I plan to reach the big number that you mentioned earlier.
All right. Well, I have a lot of questions about that, but I think we'll have to save it for another session. So thank you so much for your time.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ella.